Welcome to episode 298 of the Bear Trap on the Boomer Bust channel, Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host, Terry, and today we are talking about the news that Nagy and Pace are coming back for the 2021 season. So this news dropped today as Ted Phillips, George McCaskey had an end-of-the-year press conference, and they announced that they both would be coming back for next season. And so we're going to break this down, but what I want to start off with, off top, is something that needs to be repeated and continue to be said. A lot of times, most of the time, your reaction, you're speculating, and that's fine. Most of us are all speculating, but you have to understand where you're speculating from. Most of the time, you're not speculating from a point of authority. There's a couple perspectives in which you can look at things that happen in sports in general. First, there's the fan. There's the casual fan. There's the outsider. You're not in the organization. You don't know what's happening. And you most likely haven't been around any type of organization to know what the issues might even potentially be. You're just reacting to what you see from the outside. And it's very general. Oh, we went 8-8. Fire Nagy. Fire Pace. Or the quarterback's not good. Fire Pace. Whatever. It's very general. Then there's the perspective of someone like me that is not in the organization, but understand how the organization is ran and how football goes. And so I could safely speculate, even though I don't know the exact issue, I could speculate, given the information, what the potential issues might be. And that goes for a lot of general sports media and whatnot. Then you got some guys that are more insiders, like players. They obviously see things happening. There's some local media that have inside people. They know what's happening to a certain extent. So they know some decisions that are made and how we arrive to there. And then you got the people that are up top, McCaskey, Phillips, Pace, Nagy. They know every single decision and how it led to what. They know exactly we did this because we didn't want to do this. We picked Trubisky because we like this. We didn't like Mahomes because of this. We traded up because of this. We went for this field goal because of. They know exactly every decision. And so they know exactly where the problems are. But you're never going to get that. They're never going to tell you that. And so you're left to speculate, which is fine, but realize where you're speculating from. You're not speculating from a point of authority most times. And you need to just be okay with that. I see a lot of people, it's fine to have your opinions, but I see some people try to tell me and tell others authoritatively what is happening and what is wrong. And I'm like, bro, there's no way you would even know that. So there's that. Now, to get into it, there's a lot, and I have a lot of thoughts racing around. But I'm going to tell you this, and you might not expect it. Overall, I agreed with McCaskey and Phillips. Overall, for what they said, so I think it's like 42 minutes or something. It's on the Bears page. You can watch the whole thing. There's a couple articles with snippets, but, you know, I always like to go through the whole thing to get the context. I agree with what they were saying. A lot of what they were saying. Not everything, but a lot of what they were saying. And some people, a lot of people don't want to hear that, which, again, goes back to the perspective they have. They are just like, nah, we went 8-8, blah, 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 we barely made playoffs, we didn't do this, we didn't win a playoff game, nothing you say matters, we need to fire. And then even at one point, McCaskey brought up a season ticket holder, wrote him and said that we deserve better, somebody needs to be fired. Didn't even say who, didn't even say why or anything specific. Somebody needs to be fired. And that is what a lot of people in the ownership level, a lot of fans, a lot of people that just aren't in tune with football, that's what they fall into, this prisoner of the moment ideas and mindset. Just fire somebody. Someone needs to be fired. Fire. Like, that's the only thing you can do to hold somebody accountable. Just fire them. Just fire. Everybody just fire. Just start it over. And, but yeah, overall, I agree with what McCaskey was saying. He was like, it's tempting to want to blow it up or start over. And that's not always the answer. He said sometimes it is, but it's not always the answer. And honestly, there's no franchise that is good that just continuously, hits the restart button, essentially. And I agree with that. As much as people don't want to hear that, that's not how you win. Now, this was Nagy's third season, so some people say that's enough. Me, particularly, I've always said the teams I respect more are the teams that give their people ample time and resources to get their job done. And I don't believe like this whole instant gratification world we live in. Quarterbacks drafted first round, he better play right now. He better be great. Like, that's dumb. You can't expect players to turn around and do everything right away. I don't care what someone else did. That is just a absolutely goofy mindset. Well, he did it, so we should be. No, that they're different people. And so you can't expect them to be the same. You can't expect them to turn around and play. You can't expect your team to turn around and just win a Super Bowl. There's no team that just turns around and wins a Super Bowl. And there's absolutely no team that turns around and consistently competes for a Super Bowl. It takes time. And so I'm okay with franchises that give people time and that understand that. And frankly, the Bears have been very trigger happy before. And honestly, I understand. I agree with the philosophy. I don't even agree that the Bears have executed that way, but I do agree with what they're saying as far as that philosophy. That is true. You can't just hit the panic button every time. And honestly, McCat George, is somebody that wants to. Not I know him personally, but he said it himself. We've seen how he acts in interviews. I've seen him in person. He really is pretty much what you see. He really does care. People think he's joking. He be reading those fans' emails. He be reading the tweets. He be all that, because in person I've seen him take time to just go literally to every single person, and he wants to know. He wants fans to be happy, but at the same time, the scapegoating coach firings last year, we've seen that happen. All that stuff. And people, because they know it works. There's a number of people probably listening now that was last year. Oh, yeah, Juan Castillo. Oh, yeah, Bill Lazor. Oh, yeah. Well, no, you don't know what you're talking about. We're going to turn it around. And now look where we are. And so that was scapegoating. That was hitting not the full panic button, but that was doing something just to do it. And so I don't think we followed it completely, but I do agree with the mindset that is not automatically the answer to blow it up. So I'm glad that there's that. And then from there, they just talked a good amount about why they're bringing them back and all that stuff. And so you could go listen to it. But essentially, they said they like the way that they responded to adversity. They like how they adapted, and how the losing, not just the COVID, but the losing streak, and how they bounced back from that or whatever. But still, and I like this too, calling it a losing season. He said 8-8 was a losing season. If they didn't expand the playoffs, we wouldn't have been in the playoffs. That's not a winning season. And 100%, that's the mindset you should have. I know there's a lot of positives out there. Oh my God, stop talking negative about the Bears. Stop talking negative about Trubisky. We won. A win is a win. We made the playoffs. So stop saying negative things. But that is the reality of it. And I like that mindset, because you don't get better acting like that. Everything's great. Everything's fine. No, you get better with critique and constructive criticism. And so, yes, you treat it with high standards. 8-8, 7 seed, that's not a winning season. And so I like that he said that. But, at the same time, his reasoning for bringing them back, it's kind of, I get it. They said they look at the full body of work, and it's not just one decision. It's not just one season. It's the full body of work. And does it merit them coming back? Now, everything he was saying, I agree with Pace. I don't necessarily agree with Nagy, but I've made those feelings clear before. Haven't changed. That's how I look at it. And so I 100% understand kind of where they're coming from. Now, at the same time, one thing that was interesting to me is that they are really linking them together. Like, it was all about their communication, how well they work together, and their confidence in both of them to do it. And so it was a lot of that talk, which I don't like. It's fine that they work well, but I don't like this link. All of that stuff doesn't make sense to me. And a lot of fans, I honestly think, go along with it just because that's what it has been. But that doesn't make it right. I don't agree that the GM should be tied to the quarterback. I don't think the head coach should be tied to the GM or any of these. It's just stupid. Like there is no hard and fast rule. Like that doesn't, especially at quarterback, that doesn't make sense. Like, what if I draft a great linebacker and my quarterback's not good? So I'm supposed to be fired? Like, that's stupid. Like I get the importance of the quarterback position, but it's dumb. And again, that is a very surface level and superficial way to look at football. And so that stuff I never understood. It's just dumb to me. But anyway, because you have to be able to separate the factors. The GM does not do the coach's job. And that is such a problem with Bears fans, NFL fans, NFL owners, and everything else. That's why they can't ever understand anything past that basic thought of, well, they didn't do good, fire them, because they don't understand the components of it. A GM does not do the coach's job. A coach does not do the GM's job. The coach might have input on the GM's job and vice versa, but they are not the same thing. And I've talked about this before, so I won't go into it, but they're different jobs. And that is why I can say, yes, XYZ that Pace did, I'm cool with. But XYZ with Nagy, that's the issue. That's a issue, and that's a bigger issue that we need to fix. So I don't like this, but that's how they're talking about it, as if they're together. Now, they didn't confirm this, but I read somebody said that this is Pace's last season on his contract. Ted and George refused to comment on the contracts, but they said that, or somebody in the article said that this is Pace's last year on his contract. I don't know if this is Nagy's last year or what, but it really does seem like it is a one more year type thing. And so for me, that kind of leads to an issue, because a lot of the talk, for all the good stuff and bad stuff, a lot of the talk of the press conference, and even a Pace interview, a lot of it revolved around the quarterback position. And so, there's this big push, obviously, to get the quarterback position right. Now, I'll say two things. First, it worries me because it's a weird situation. Like, you're setting up a weird situation, and someone was asking this, but their question got kind of cut off, and I don't think they really answered it. But you're setting up a situation where you're giving Nagy and Pace one more year. But if you're pushing to solve the quarterback position, quote unquote, then you're bringing in a young quarterback into a potential situation where the whole regime's going to be changing. And I don't see how that makes sense. Now, some things are conventional because they make sense and they work, or they're just logical. Like a quarterback, you bringing in a quarterback, you're not necessarily married to him, but it's extending your time. like people say, oh, they got a quarterback so they could buy themselves another year or whatever. That makes sense to me because especially with quarterbacks, it takes time to see them develop. And so it would be really hard for me, whatever way you go, if you get a younger quarterback to say, okay, within this year, you better be ready to go. It takes time. So are you willing to give them 2-3 years? Or you just say, okay, we're going to bring in this quarterback, and if it doesn't work out, then we're just going to flip the whole script and we'll see. Because that's essentially what you had with Haskins. And because, again, it happens. Not saying that it doesn't happen, but, again, a lot of stuff that's happening now just doesn't make sense. Some things are conventional for a reason. Because you see it with Haskins. You come in 1 year, and then you got a whole group that doesn't even know or like you. You seen it with I just blanked. I was just thinking of another quarterback. But it's about to happen with Herbert. Jalen Hurts, that's what I was thinking of. They brought in Jalen Hurts. They made that decision to bring him in. And now coaching stuff is gone. Herbert, that's about to happen too. All that. So, and then again, and it's weird because if you got so I don't know how people feel about Hurts, but if you got someone on Herbert's level or Burrow's level or whatever, and you feel like that's a real potential star, then why are you firing the quarterback? Because some people will be like, all right, bring him in, and then the next team could work with him. But why are we getting fired if the quarterback is that good? So it just doesn't make sense to me. I think you're setting up a potential situation to hurt the player. And it happened to Trubisky as well. You brought him in. Now, Pace, obviously, in a lot of these situations, the GM stays. But you brought Pace brought him in. You had Fox and all that. And then you flipped the coaching scheme on him. And, it don't always work. It don't always work for players to be shuffled around like that. And so I don't really get how this is going to work. The only way I see it happening is a veteran. But that brings me to my second point. I'm here to tell you, not guaranteed, obviously, but I am putting my money on it. Pace is about to make a big move for a quarterback. And the market is ripe, as people have been saying. I still don't believe that Watson will get moved. But obviously the conversations are out there. But I think more so about a Carson Wentz. I think more so about a Jalen Hurts. I think more so about Tua. I think more so about Miami's pick, Tua or their pick, where you might be in position to get one of these quarterbacks. I think about I think Trevor Lawrence is kind of locked in. Either he's going to the Jags or potentially going to Houston if they trade, but I highly doubt they do that within the same division. So, but, there's a lot of young quarterbacks in this draft, and then there's some quarterbacks that questions are being talked about around the league. And so I think the market is ripe for a dramatic move. And I really think that Pace is under pressure to do that. And I think he has the guts to do it when he wants to get something done. What does that entail? Does that entail Khalil Mack getting moved? Does that entail a big jump in the draft? Does that, what does that entail? I don't know, but I am telling you, I'm putting my money on it. There's going to be a big move at quarterback because there has to be. Foles probably might stick around as a backup. I still don't have an issue with him like some people do. Some people talk like Foles was just, I don't know. He obviously wasn't great, but I still fully say he's better than Trubisky. And so Trubisky, highly doubt he's coming back. I mean, high doubt he's coming back. So there's got to be a move. There's got to be a move, and I expect to see that at a pace. So yeah. That's kind of what they talked about as far as the quarterback position and whatnot. And so some of the things that was interesting to me, the Ted Phillips thing. So I will say this. Did I completely understand his role? Because a lot of people have always been like, get rid of Ted Phillips, blah, blah, blah. Did I completely understand his role? I wouldn't say completely. For the most part, I understood. But listening to them talk, people are naturally going to say certain things. Now, look, Ted does the business side. These are corporations. Like, I was just in contact with some people with the Bears recently, but they have, it's a whole corporate. They have a directory, they have HR, they have marketing teams, they got everything. Like, it is a business. He's the CEO and president. And so a lot of what he does is with the money side and the contract side as well, in that. And obviously the other business ventures of the Bears. Now, does he have input on the GMs and all that? Yes. And I said that before. He has input, but he's not the one making that decision solely by himself. They have to interview with the owners, the ownership team. They have to interview with the McCaskies. They have to, and a lot of times they have people that consult with them about who to interview and whatnot. And really, that's not hard. I mean, you could walk into a GM or a president's job today, go to NFL.com and look at the coach search, and it is all the same coaches being interviewed. But whatever. So, yes, he has a part in that, in hiring the GM, and then the GM reports to him. That's that structure for the Bears. That's not, because some people get it twisted. Like, and I've seen people bring up Elway and whatever. Every team is not structured the same. And so the way we're structured, Nagy reports up to, not Nagy, but yeah, Nagy reports to Pace. Pace reports up to Phillips. Now, yes, that's the way it's set up, but really it's just a middleman to me. The way I always understood it and what they said from their own mouths, from Pace now, is that Pace and Nagy report to the owners. That's what they said. But today they were saying that he reports up to Phillips. Now, that means he holds them accountable. That means he does his evaluation. It's a very corporate structure, but that doesn't have any effect on what goes on the day-to-day. And McCaskey addressed that himself. Literally what everybody says, that Ted meddles in football. He doesn't. He doesn't. There's no reason for him to. Pace has the power to do what he has to do. Now, is it a legitimate question to ask, should people with no football like background evaluate the head coach and evaluate the GM? I think that's a legitimate question. However, I would still say that evaluation probably ain't that hard. I mean, I would say, again, it would be more in depth, and probably you would dislike the Bears more if you had a football guy, because they would be more apt to keep them. When you want people to get fired, these type of non-football people are usually the ones that want to fire people. Now, a football person, again, looking at all the decisions, would be a lot more understanding and probably less apt to fire people. And that would be my guess. So either way, nobody makes these decisions alone. Even if the president is a football guy, no one makes these decisions alone. If you're searching for a GM, they're going to have to interview with the owners or the majority owner. You're going to consult other people around the league that you trust. You're going to look at who the hot candidates are. You're going to do those same thing that every other team is doing. It's not like you just picked a random guy off the street and was like, yo, who do you think the GM should be? No, these are people that are connected in the league, and they're going to do the same thing that any other person was going to do. There's an acumen to it, but still, these interview processes, that's how it goes. Once you identify who the GM is, then they'll go ahead and do their job, and then you evaluate it. People act like it is just this this otherworld rocket science, because it's no different than players. Like, It'd be one thing again if you hired Ryan Pace and it was like, who is Ryan Pace? Like, Ryan Pace was an intern at the Saints. Like, that'd be different. Or Ryan Pace wasn't even working in football. That'd be different. Ryan Pace was a top candidate for everyone. Nagy was a top candidate for everyone. Trubisky was a top prospect for everyone. It didn't work out, not because some egregious mistake by the Bears. It just didn't work out for other reasons. And people have a hard time understanding that. They just love to look for someone to blame. And so, anyway, Ted Phillips, as president, they report to him. He does their evaluation. That's it. And so, again, these cries to fire Ted Phillips, I don't know. And then especially the owners, you're not firing the owners. You just got to get over that. Now, me personally, listening to this interview, I started to think the NFL should change it where the owners can't be this involved, or there can be no majority owner, or it has to be group ownership or something. Because really, not to say that this is the case with the Bears, but when I look around the league and stuff, a lot of issues with the teams is because of the owners. And they just are too egotistical to get out of their own way. And again, I think the McCaskies want to win and whatnot. But, yeah, I mean, that's the way it goes sometimes. So, but at the end of the day, for me, again, I'm cool with Pace staying. Nagy, that's a different story. And people keep talking about, oh, what is Nagy or Pace with his moves? And I'm like, again, I think I've yet to have any conversation with anybody that gave me any legit argument about why Pace needs to be fired. Besides the same silly conversations. He paid Glennon. Look, okay, I looked at the 2017 free agency. Guess what? Wasn't that many other quarterbacks available. You had Jay Cutler leave, who you all hated, and you wanted him to go and would have been mad if he came back. You had Kirk Cousins, got franchise tag, eventually traded or whatever. He ended up going to the Vikings. But at the time was franchised by the Redskins. And then it was one more of the quarterback that was Romo retired. You didn't really have any top tier quarterbacks. Now, that's not to say that Glennon was great or anything, but understandable. The biggest issue people had was the money. Okay, there's a lot of overpaid quarterbacks. I guarantee you line up any quarterback with a long-time contract, and the vast majority are overpaid. So you have to get out of your head about production and money as more so the market that a quarterback draws. But people like to use that as that prevented us from getting free agents. I looked at the free agency. Yeah, it was not a good free agency. Glennon was 34 on the top 100 free agent list. So it was not a whole lot of good free agents, and a whole lot of them went back to their team. And again, that doesn't mean that you would have got those players. People create these they connect dots that's not there. So if you didn't get Glennon and take the cap hit, which wasn't catastrophic anyway. Yes, he might have got more money you think he deserved, but it wasn't catastrophic. It didn't hinder our cap. But even if you didn't sign Glennon, you got that extra money. Guess what? That doesn't mean you were going to get any of those free agencies. Just like people do with the draft all the time. You traded away the 4th round pick, and Alvin Kamara went in the 4th round. Guess what? There's no guarantee we would have drafted Alvin Kamara. Like, that is such a flawed argument. And so that whole Glennon thing, whatever. He was a bridge quarterback. Everyone knew he was a bridge quarterback. They didn't say, hey, this is our future. Obviously, they drafted Trubisky, so they didn't think he was the future. He was a bridge quarterback, whatever. Trubisky, I've been through that decision so many times. And then even with Foles' contract got restructured so much that it is not that big of a problem for our cap. We are in a position with decent cap space really decent cap space, a really talented roster, and that is Nagy's job, and good, decent draft capital. Like, yes, he gave up stuff, but we're not in the hole where we don't have picks for years to come. Like, there's some other like, people complain, but there's some other teams really worse off, and they didn't even fire their GMs. I'm talking about teams where GMs left bad contracts, no cap space to even get free agents. I'm talking about none, not even middle of the league. I'm talking about bad cap space, bad draft capital, gave away lots of picks. You don't got no picks for the upcoming time. And then there's a team with really bad rosters. We are good in all three of those positions. There is not one of those categories between roster talent, draft picks, or draft capital, and cap space that I would say we're bad in. So I'm cool with the Ryan Pace stuff. It's the Matt Nagy stuff that I scratch my head, but we're going to have to live through it. We're going to have to live through this next season. We're going to see what moves they make, but at the end of the day, it's a little bit of a fool's errand. I don't think Nagy has shown anything to make me believe that he is head coach material at this time. And so, yeah, I stand firm of where I stood last year and through this year and right now. Like, it's nothing the Bears have done have proven me wrong thus far. So anyway, that's it for me. Go down to the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around. Get the conversation started. And remember, stay up and bear down.